India, it is huge. As a matter of fact, it's so big, it makes up 17.5% of the entire world's population. But how big is that exactly? Well, the population of India currently sits at 1.2 billion people. And guess what, guys? It's steadily rising. As a matter of fact, by 2022, they predict that it will definitely destroy China's population. And by 2050, there will be 1.6 billion people living in India. The Kumbh Mela is a mass pilgrimage of faith, where people gather around a sacred river to bathe. In 2013, the Kumbh Mela estimated over 120 million people. And on February 10th of that year, 30 million people came to the festival. As a matter of fact, it was so big that you could see it from space. At one point, India was an island. 100 million years ago, back in the dinosaur days, it broke off from the supercontinent Gondwanaland, and it moved north, eventually crashing into Asia. And because of this collision, that is why we have the Himalayan mountains, which are the youngest but also the biggest mountains. In India, there are more road deaths than in any other country, with an approximation of 115,000 people dying a year from motor vehicle accidents. Now here's a shocking fact. I always thought that Hollywood was like the biggest film industry in the entire world, but actually India is. They produce over 1,100 films a year. And a lot of you guys might think, oh, they're all Bollywood films, but that's not actually true. Bollywood only produces about 200 of them. In India, they have 6 seasons. Yeah, I know, we only have like 4. You got spring, you got summer, you got monsoon, you've got autumn. And then of course you get winter, but then there's another one called Pravernal. Alright, so for this next one, you know when you guys travel to a country and sometimes you like to bring some currency back, something maybe to put in your scrapbook? Well, believe it or not, you can't do that in India, because it is actually illegal to leave the country with any form of Indian currency. Mumbai is one of the most polluted cities on the planet. As a matter of fact, it's so polluted that if you spend one day there, they say it equals 100 cigarettes. Ugh, how do people live there for more than like 3 days? In certain states in India, if you're a police officer and you grow a mustache, you will get a pay increase. I'm just waiting for them to get like monocles and maybe some top hats, and then they'll be really classy. India is also a country that has not invaded a country in 10,000 years. Although some scholars say it was 100,000 years, but this is due to the fact that India was a very rich nation, and actually kings were too busy fighting amongst themselves. In India, there are more mobile phones than there are toilets in the entire country. Wow. Okay, this is not a shocking fact, but this is really one for me. You guys know these things? Yeah, these awesome looking formal jackets. I know, they're so cool, right? Well, they're called Sherwanis, and I want one. That's just the fact right now. If you go to India, be careful of the children in the school. 61% of them have a disease that causes germs on their hands. So don't be shaking anybody without sanitizing. Now, we all love spices. Some people like it hot, some people like it mild, but a lot of you guys in first world nations may think, hey, well, we get our spices from like places like Mexico. But that is actually not true, because 70% of the spices that are sold worldwide come all the way from India. Now, for us here in North America, most of us are sitting complaining about not enough female leads in Hollywood or Donald Trump, or we're complaining about first world problems. Meanwhile, in India, they have a child slavery problem. Slavery is still a thing in India, and believe it or not, they think that there's over 14 million people in slavery, and most of them are all children. And just so you know, most of these children are working in things like quarries. Not good. In India, there's an airline company called Go Air. And speaking of females from the last one, this company only hires females. Why? Because, well, they say that females are lighter, and because of that, they save up to $500,000 US a year simply on fuel. Bills in India are great for the blind. This is because they have Braille on them. But they're not the only country to do it. Countries like Russia, China, Mexico, and Israel also do that as well. India has also claimed that it has the most diverse amount of languages in the country. In 1961, a census went around totaling 1,652 languages in the country. Big ones are, well, you guessed it, Hindi, Bengali. There's also Telugu, Marathi, and Urdu. For me, I've always loved the animals from India. They're way better than the ones in North America. I mean, elephants are just super cool. But did you know that there are over 90,000 species of animals in India? 350 of them are animals. There are 1,200 types of birds. And as for plant species, well, there's over 50,000 of them. And last but not least, guys, India has a great space exploration program, and it's getting better year by year. In 2009, India was the first country to discover water on the moon. And it makes you wonder what else they will create and what else they will discover. India is home to the biggest home. And by that, I mean a guy has the biggest family ever in the entire world. As a matter of fact, he has 39 wives and 94 children. His name is Ziona Channa, and man, I just don't want to know what the grocery bill would be like. Did you know that in India, it has the lowest meat consumption per person? This is because a majority of the country are all vegetarians. Wouldn't you just love that if we could do that in North America here? Be like, yo guys, you're all vegetarians, sorry, but you can't eat steak no more. And although they are all vegetarians, believe it or not, cows are a huge commodity in that country. And they are so important that every cow has to have a photo ID. Now this is kind of a sad fact, but did you know that every hour a woman dies from dowry-related crimes? The fleshlight might be a really taboo thing over here, but over there in India, it's extremely taboo. This is because sex toys are completely illegal in the country. But snakes and ladders isn't. That's kind of a good thing to play with. It was a game that was invented in India, but eventually moved to Britain, where it was picked up by Milton Bradley. Did you know that India was the first country to invent cataract surgery? And it started all the way back in the 3rd century. It was invented by a physician named Sushruta. They used a tool called the Jabamukhi Salaka, and this was pretty much a curved needle that would loosen your lens and push your cataract out of the field of vision. After that, the eye would be soaked in warm water, and it apparently worked. 53% of houses in India don't have bathrooms. Oh god, that's gotta stink. India is also home to the largest postal service in the entire world. They have over 54,000 postal offices, and as a matter of fact, they even have a floating one that was created in 2011, which is on the Dal Lake in Srinagar. Have you ever seen this bridge? It's called the Bandra Worli Sea Link, and it is one of the most spectacular bridges in the entire world. What's amazing about this bridge is if you were to combine all the steel wires used to make the bridge, it would stretch out to equal the entire world's circumference. And on top of that, the bridge weighs about 50,000 elephants. India was also the first country to produce refined sugar. Now, right now, you are looking at the Lonar Lake, which is a saltwater lake in Maharashtra. And it's a very rare type of lake because, like, look at its shape. It was created from a meteorite crashing into Earth. Now, one of my favorite actors, Ben Kingsley, that's actually not his name. His original name is Krishna Pandit Banji, and yes, his ancestry comes all the way back from India. Also, chess was invented in this country, and the first person to win a world championship in chess was Viswanathan Anand. Okay, so you're probably wearing clothes right now, unless of course, you know, you're in the tub watching this completely naked, or naked on the couch, or naked in a park, which would be totally inappropriate. But if you are wearing clothes, believe it or not, you are probably wearing something that was made in India. No, I'm not talking denim, I'm talking buttons, son. The button was originally invented and released in India 5,000 years ago. The only downside is it was really just made out of seashells. India was also the first country to invent the zero sign. That's right, this weird little kind of slanted O thing that looks kind of like it wants to be an egg. Before this, the Babylonians represented the zero with a blank space. But this ended up getting really confusing, so instead they just put a dot. But by 500 AD, Aryabhata, who was one of the very first mathematicians and astronomers, he decided, nope, we're going to totally change the zero and make it like an O. Now, we've all heard of blood diamonds. They're diamonds in Africa, and everyone likes to think, yeah, diamonds, they only come from Africa. But believe it or not, before 1986, India was the #1 country where you could get diamonds. In India, they rack about 28,904 murders per year. Wow. That's bad. The first granite temple was also built in India. The Brihadeeshwara temple was built in the 11th century, and also it was only created in 5 years. Now, the country might be smaller than most countries, but it has the largest road network. If you were to take all the roads and combine them together, they would equal no less than 1.9 million miles of road. If you were to build that out in space, you could easily go to the moon, as the moon is only 238 miles. But overall, I just want to list off some of the amazing mathematical accomplishments that India has, well, done. This country was the first ones to invent pi, trigonometry, calculus, and even my good old-fashioned favorite, which I failed at all the time, Algebra. I hate algebra. Well, India is the 18th largest trading country in the entire world. Now, its biggest export being refined petroleum, which makes up 18% of its $292 billion income. Now, the crazy thing is, although India exports a lot of goods, they actually import a lot as well. As a matter of fact, its total import costs equal $421 billion. And the biggest of that being crude petroleum, which makes up 29% of its imports. Which I kind of wonder if they get that from Mexico, because Mexico exports a lot of crude petroleum. More on that in our future video where we talk about Mexico. Now, India may be a country that has a lot of Bollywood films, but television didn't start until 1959. As a matter of fact, September 15th to be exact. This is when the Doordarshan experimented with a small transmitter and a makeshift studio in Delhi. And since then, TV's just exploded all over the country. As a matter of fact, probably a lot of our viewers who are watching this or watched our previous India videos are from there. Speaking of which, if you're from India or your ancestors are from India, hit that like button. Boom! Now, the first president of India was Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Crazy thing about him, he only took 50% of his income. 50%? Why would he do that? Well, it's because he was like, yo, I don't need this much money. And as a matter of fact, by his 12th year of running, he went down to 25%. Now, we know India has an interesting space program, but it doesn't include unmanned craft, but it's also included manned craft. Now, the first astronaut from India was Rakesh Sharma. Now, you might find this a little weird, but he went up with the Soviets in Soyuz T-11 on April 3rd, 1984. But this was part of a program called Intercosmos, and it was a program that the Russians practiced to help Soviet Union allies with manned and unmanned space programs. Now, in India, it's got 501 animal sanctuaries, 94 national parks, with the biggest being the Hemis National Park. And if you want to go see a snow leopard, that is the place to go because it has the most snow leopards and it's world famous for visitors seeing them. Speaking about animals, let's talk about my favorite animal. It is the elephant. I mean, how can you not like the elephant? It's big, it's majestic, and it makes cute little sounds. Actually, cute big sounds, because it's so big, but you get the idea. Now, the elephant is a very protected animal. As a matter of fact, it is still on the endangered species list. Now, currently, they estimate in India there are about 23,900 wild elephants, with about 3,600 in captivity. Now, have you ever heard of Gleevec? Well, it is a cancer drug. And as a matter of fact, if you want to purchase Gleevec, it'll cost you $2,500 in India, but in the United States, it'll cost you over $70,000 because it's not patented in the United States of America. Now, in our last video, India 2, we talked about how India is home to the biggest home, but it's actually also home to the most expensive house of all time. It is called the Antilia, which is pretty much more a 27-floor skyscraper. It is currently valued at $1 billion and was made for Mukesh Ambani, who is, yes, a multi-billionaire and can easily afford this. The house itself is not only 27 stories high, it is 400,000 square feet. It was built by Perkins and Will architect firm in Chicago, and besides his family and his 2 kids living there, it also consists of 600 employees, 3 helipads, 6 floor parking, and let's not forget the giant cinema. Dear God, that is a giant house. And last but not least, let's talk about the Golden Temple, which is also known more as the Harmandir Sahib, and it is the most humanitarian temple in the entire world. Now, why is it? Well, the Golden Temple feeds 100,000 people a day and can easily feed up to 300,000 people with its vegetarian meals. As a matter of fact, it's so popular, it is called the world's largest soup kitchen.